good to get things different ways. So this is how I would prefer you to learn and think about them. Do it however you see fit, as long as you get there. Python actually has 3 different types of arrays. They are tuples, lists, and dictionaries. So, chapter 6.1 to 6.3, 6.1, 6.2, and 6.3. Very, very simple. You can see next here the notation for what a tuple is, what a list is, and what a dictionary is. These are curly braces. So, and there's an example of what each of these looks like when you define them. So, a tuple is just a list of items. It can be as many items as you want to. You may initially think, well, what is the difference between writing something like this and writing something like this? The only difference is you use parentheses here and square brackets here. Well, there is more to it than just that. You'll almost never use these. Okay? You'll encounter them, but you'll never actually write them yourself. The reason is a tuple is a list that cannot be modified. Okay? It's just a list of information that you define once and you're done with it. It doesn't require any, you don't need to add or remove items, you don't need to reorder them, you don't need to sort them. Okay? So that's the only difference. And you can see here that we have, if you define something like this, you can think of it like a matrix or an Excel sheet of item 1, item 2, item 3. And in any and all programming languages, you always count starting 0 when you're talking about lists. Okay? So the first item is item 0, the second item is item 1, and so forth. This will trip you up sometime, similar to how projections are screwing everyone up when they're working in GIS. You forget to project, you don't know what projection you're working in, etc. This is probably going to screw you up more than anything else when you begin to work with scripting. Is that you always count starting 0. And it has utility, and you'll see why in a second. Why it's useful to say that there are 3 items on this list, but the last index is only 2. Okay? The usefulness is that it keeps them separate in your mind. It allows you to think about the length of a list versus the items in it differently. Kind of keep them separate in your head. So you can define, again, you almost never use a tuple, but you can define a list like this. You just type it out, an ordered list of items. This right here is a variable. So this variable is being set equal to this list of items 1, 2, and 3. Now, this can also be written like this. You can also say, start with an empty list. So just take everything out and just put the brackets. And then fill in item 1, fill in item 2, and then, after you have the 2 items in the list, just append item 3 to the end of it. Okay. So you can see that you can easily read what is on the screen and assume what it is doing. In almost all programming languages, I will say VB is an exception to this in my head right now. But you access items in the list using square brackets after the variable name. So to get item 1 or to set item 1, we say array list index 0 equals that item. We can retrieve it the same way. We can say print array list 0, index 0, and we would get item 1 back. So hopefully you can this should be fairly simple. Okay. So again, you must remember that all lists are accessed via their indexes. So these are called indexes. Lists are ordered lists. They start at 0 and go upwards. The last type of array is called a dictionary in Python. If anyone has any other programming, this is an associative array. Okay? That just means you are associating a key or word in a dictionary with its entry. Okay? So this is the word, and that is its definition. Key, value. Okay? These are key value pairs. You can define dictionaries in the same way that you defined lists. You can say, start with an empty dictionary, define an item called first item, define an item called second and third, and so forth. You should not immediately assume that order is maintained. In a lot of programming languages, this type of array does not necessarily mean that when you print it back out, you're going to get the first item, the second item, and the third item. You could get the second, third, and then the first. Okay? So the computer is not necessarily made to maintain an order when it's talking about associative arrays. However, in Python, that order is almost always maintained. So if you did iterate, go through this array, it would probably print the first item, the second item, and the third item. You can also notice that instead of indexes, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the index here is called the key, and it is in quotes. Okay? That's because it's a string. Okay? It is text. Text and string. We started to talk about data types when we were working in GIS. Now we're going to use those data types. So text and string are one type of data. Integers, decimals, and so forth. So the keys in a dictionary are always strings. The indexes in a list are always integers. Similarly, you cannot run the append command to a dictionary because there is no order to it, really. So you're never really appending an item. You have to fill it in like that. You have to add the item. You may notice you're beginning to see a little bit of the syntax or standard syntax of defining lists and variables. You can see that unlike here and here, where if we wanted to define everything up front and not incrementally, we can just put it all in one line. Similarly, this is really, in terms of how the computer sees it, just one line of code. Okay? You can see that the opening brace is there, the closing one is here, and then everything else is ordered with commas after it in the correct location. Okay? You can split things up like this just for ease of reading. Okay? So when you're looking at your code, you can see that this dictionary has 3 keys and with these particular values. It could be written as one line if you wanted to. Are there any yes?
So